Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach and welcome to Shorty's Say, second instalment of this segment, 2 weeks running, and today we're going to discuss a few things. Firstly, I want to start and have a bit of a discussion about some rule changes and 2 rules, in particular one that is currently really dominating discussion and my views on that, and hopefully I can get yours through the comments, and then I will elaborate and go a bit further into just the fabric of the game and a couple of things that really irk me with certain people's thinking in the media. So there are a few things that I'm going to discuss. Feel free to have your input in the comments. I am a serious risk of getting on a tangent on this video, so hopefully I can keep it to around the 10-minute mark, but I make no promises. So firstly, of course, we're going to talk about the deliberate out of bounds, and I will briefly touch on the third man up as well. But the deliberate out of bounds, I should say, or insufficient intent as it's being referred to now. Where are we at with that, and what is my view? Firstly, I will say this is not here to bash umpires. I think it's a very simplistic view when people go to the footy and say, oh, nah, the umpiring was terrible, that's why we lost the game. I've never seen a game be decided by the umpires. I think it's such an easy cop-out, and sometimes you see poorly umpired games, better ones than others, and you might comment on it, but never does it decide the game. And I think it's a very simple way of viewing football to just boo umpires and things like that. So I'm not here to bash umpires. I feel they've got an extremely tough job, which brings me to the question, why are we making it tougher? Now, the deliberate out of bounds is such a tough rule to discuss about and to interpret, because at the moment I'm enjoying elements of what it's doing. It's keeping the ball in play. The boundary line is no longer the safety of the defender or the sanctity of an under pressure midfielder. You've really got to do everything in your powers to keep the ball in. Same can be said for the deliberate rush behind, which we're starting to see some good results, particularly in the back half, keeping the play going, the ball alive. It makes it exciting, because that's what we want. That's what the AFL want, is exciting, watchable footy. And I'm all for that. And I think those 2 rules have definitely helped that. But we've got to be careful to not go too far one way. Because I think at the moment when we're seeing umpires adjudicate, what we're seeing is a real element of their thinking of, I want to pay deliberate out of bounds. That's what I want. It's what we're being instructed to do. We want to penalise players for not keeping the ball in or having no intent to keep it in. And what it's developed is this fact of the game where a player will kick the ball and it becomes an umpire's interpretation of what was on their mind, an umpire's interpretation of whether they hit the kick right, whether that was actually their intention. There is such a grey area about it. I think the rule has been great for keeping play going, and it does create some good elements of our game and our fast-paced game. But I think we've got to pull the reins on it a little bit and just not be so strict, because they are being so strict and it's leading to a bit of guesswork. It's leading to an umpire going, when he's got the decision of, oh gee, I reckon that could have been deliberate, I want to be strict, so it is. It is leading to a little bit of guesswork. To the benefit of the doubt is not going to the player. The benefit of the doubt is going to the fact that I want to be strict, therefore my default choice when unsure and 50-50 is to be strict and penalise the player. And I'm not liking it. I'll use the example not of Jaden Short at this stage, because I think that's a very tough one. We've got to watch it 20 times to realise whether he fumbled it or not. And I think in the end, he initially tried to fumble it, then tried to grab it and actually fumbled it. I think that's a wrong decision, but I can understand how the umpire did pay it. The one I want to talk about is Anthony Miles, where coming out of the back 50, you probably saw it, kicked it out to Elton on the wing. Now, just looking at it, you probably might say, yeah, look, that could be deliberate, but he was clearly passing it to Elton. If you watch the ball flight, he doesn't hit the kick well. It looks like it's going 40, fades and turns to the boundary because he hasn't kicked a proper and true drop punt. You can tell by the bounce of the ball. Elton actually runs onto it, grabs it first bounce, and he's about a metre over the line. He's paid deliberate. I mean, they're the ones, Stringer the other day, I think it's just leading to too many inconsistencies. And I don't think we want to get to the point where players are kicking it, it's bouncing 4 or 5 times, you got a defender running with his hands in the air appealing before it's gone over. It's a disgusting look and it's not good at all. I think we've got to find a middle ground. I like what it's doing, but I just don't think we can have a player kick a ball, an oval ball, whatever his intent is, and all of a sudden the decision is decided by which way the ball bounces, which the player has no control over. No control. I mean, it's unbelievable, some of the decisions, and I like what it's doing, and the AFL will say we're looking into it too much, but the fact is there is inconsistent decisions being made, and when you go to the footy as a fan, they kick the ball out, and you honestly don't know. If it's your team, you're appealing with a bit of hope, because you just don't know what they're going to do. They might pay it, they may not. So I'm not enjoying it. I think it'd be a shocking thing to see on grand final day, and I promise you this, we will not be seeing those sort of decisions paid in grand final day, because generally we just revert back to traditional footy, and grand final day is typically a very low free kick count and quite a let it go sort of an umpiring grand final and umpiring day. So I do not like that. Jeez, it's already been 6 minutes. Shorty's got a bit to say here, but I'll quickly touch on the third man up, and that will lead into what I actually want to talk about. Third man up, I didn't see any need for it to be rid of the game. I think it starts some great pieces of play, and stats have shown that it has no coherence to whether the play is more or less congested. It doesn't have any prediction on that, or any benefit to or for or against or anything like that. Statistics have shown that, and I just feel like, you know, yes, the rucks get a free crack at it and things like that, but I really feel like the third man up was a great part of our game and had some brilliant pieces of play and passages of play. You know, you just got to look at, what was it, Jordan Lewis last year led to Cyril Rioli sinking the Swans with seconds remaining. You know, it just gives something else around the stoppage and a bit of a plan B. I wouldn't be surprised if they change that rule slightly, or even bring the third man back in. So I now want to talk about exactly my main passion for this. I said the word fabric before, the fabric of our game, and I feel like we're changing too many things in the world where everything's got to be progressive. You know, we got to keep moving, we got to stay ahead of the curve, nothing can stay the same. It's the world we live in these days, and to a point I agree, you got to be progressive and take a bit of a look towards the future. But you also got to be a bit traditional, and you got to understand, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Just because it's been around for 100 years doesn't mean it needs to be changed. Now, I think we got to be careful as we change these rules. You know, just minor rule changes of a chopping of the arms and things, it doesn't change the look of our game greatly. But when you start mucking around with too much of it, you know, there's talk of last touch, which for the record I think is absolutely horrible idea. I couldn't think of anything worse, to be honest. Third man up, a great element of our game. It's out as well. You know, I'm probably resigned to the fact that a grand final will become a twilight game at some stage. I'm not absolutely against that. I can understand why they are. But could someone please tell me, why are we changing to a twilight? I've heard all the reasons why we need to get rid of a day grand final. But actually, I'll take that comment back before. I want to see the day grand final remain. I love it. I love the tradition of it. Buggy a twilight, to be honest. I can understand the discussion, but until I see a genuine reason why we should change it, I don't feel any need, aside from maybe halftime entertainment would probably be better. But other than that, I don't go to the grand final to watch halftime entertainment. Other things are like the draw, getting rid of the draw, deciding it by a kickoff or like a penalty shootout. What are we talking about? Forever we hear how great this American idea is, what they do in English Premier League. Sometimes we've got to remember that we are part of the greatest game in the world, and we've got to be very, very careful that we preserve those elements. You always hear Hutchie banging on about his American crap, and I like Hutchie, but he just forever wants to change it to something else, and how good the Yanks are doing it. Sometimes you just got to look at our game and say, don't change it for change's sake. Sometimes you got to look and say this is a great part of our game and what makes it Australian rules football. And I think we've just got to be really careful. The other day I'm watching the footy show. Beck Madden says, is it time we get rid of the banner? I was sat on my ass. I mean, what are you talking about, Beck? I really like her. She's a Cats fan. Really enjoy most of what she says. But that was one of the worst things I've ever heard. The banner is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, while we're at it, let's ditch the banner, play a night grand final, stuff the draw. Let's put the footy on the ground and kick it into a net to decide a draw. You know, let's do all that. I mean, hell, we may as well just change anything. While we're at it, let's blow a whistle at quarter time. Hang on. Actually, let's play one and play a first half, then a second half. Bugger your quarters, blow a whistle instead of a siren, and the winner, don't have a song. Just sit around and enjoy the win. Bugger the theme songs. The Americans don't do it. Stuff it. We've got to be careful that we remember why this is such a great game. And it is the best game in the world. Of course, there's a bit of bias, but it's a 360 game. It requires so many elements. Anybody, whether they're 160 centimetres or 210 centimetres, if you're fit enough, capable of enough, there's a role for you. Caters to all. Fast-paced. It's aerial. It's 360 on the ground. It has so many elements which makes it great, and I just think we've got to be real careful that we don't lose sight of that. So, in summary, I just think we've really got to really assess where we're at and not change too many things on a knee-jerk reaction and just see how they go. Let's just assess how this deliberate rule plays out. I do think we've probably got to pull it back a little bit, not necessarily to have players thinking more about a defensive mindset around the boundary lines, but just finding consistency, because that's all we want. I think I'd rather, say we're at 100% strictness right now, which we're probably not, but say we are, I think I'd be much more comfortable at pulling it back to 75, still seeing a lot of deliberates that weren't paid 2 years ago now paid, but just take away that guesswork, because I just don't think we need any room for interpretation or guesswork or the umpire actually thinking, gee, this is my call, how did I see it? It's almost an opinion-based thing, you know, unless they're sure, unless they absolutely saw how the kick came off the boot, can they be sure? So I really think we've got to be very careful of that. While I'm at it, the centre bounce, we always want to get rid of the bounce as well. It's a great part of our game. I understand limiting it because it is consistencies around that. But I think the real question, instead of ditching the bounce, is what a great part of our game. Put more time and effort and resources and money into teaching umpires how to execute the skill better. That's exactly what you need to be doing, because it's a great part of our game. But what do we say on the radio? You know, g'day guys, 2 hours to the bounce. You know, that's part of our game. It's part of what we say. You know, it's not 2 hours until we throw the ball up. That's footy. It's part of footy that makes it the great game. So I reckon that's about all I've got for Shorty's say, or on this occasion, probably Shorty's rant. What are we going for a time count? We've already eclipsed 13 minutes, so I've gone a little bit over, but to be fair, I think they are relevant points, and I am frustrated by how quickly we try and turn the game over and change this and change that. It's the greatest game in the world. I think we've got to be very careful that we don't lose sight of that and change too many elements of our game and then change it in 10 years to what it was, because I do think it's great, attractive footy right now. I do feel like we've found a good balance. It was defensive probably 8 years ago. It's going to ebb and flow with coaches, but I think at the moment, with a few rule tweaks, we've got it pretty good, maybe overdone it. So I think if we pull the reins back a little bit, we'll get a really good flavour of footy, and I think it'll be looking really good. So I just think we've got to make sure we keep some great traditions of our game, because that's what traditions are. They're fantastic for what they are, because they've been around for so long, they've got character, history, and it draws people in. So I think we've got to be real careful of that, the things that make our game exactly what it is. You know, the siren, the oval ball, the bounce, you know, everything that we talk about. I think it's really important that we do keep those and just don't have people piping up who, you know, if you're going to categorise me, I probably am more so in the traditionalist camp than a progressive camp, but I think if we find an even balance, then we'll really find that our game is in good hands without changing it unnecessarily but also not being caught in the past. So I think we've just got to be really careful that we don't go changing two elements of our game, particularly umpiring. Just try and find consistency, make their job as easy as they can to find consistency in decisions, as well as making for a very attractive game, which I think at the moment the state of footy is really quick paced. Crowds have never been higher, and it's great to see. So I'll wrap it up there, guys. Hopefully you've stayed around for a reasonable amount of this, because I think a lot of people will also agree with me that a few of these have to stay around. Some people may disagree, but by all means, throw it in the comments. If you think there should be a Twilight Grand Final, let me know. If you hate the bounce, let me know. If you disagree with anything I've said, by all means, hit me up with a comment. But hopefully, this can provoke a little bit of discussion in the comments, because it does get people talking. So, thanks for tuning in, guys. This has been Shorty Safe for another week. Get on board with a like and a comment, and above all, subscribe to the channel. So, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you soon.